Alright, my next vlog today. Jesus, I hope it doesn't rain. It looks like it's about to rain here. Is actually about cars, even though I'm on a bike. Did you check the news out a couple of months ago? Hyundai actually opened a car assembly plant in Nawal Parasi towards the Tarai region of the country, far away from the urban centers around Baidoa. Yeah, I wanted to just talk to you about that briefly, of course. Nothing too much in depth. I have no idea the actual facts and figures. I just saw the news and I was mildly surprised. I must have missed the inauguration news a couple of years ago when it first came out. So I am mildly surprised by the entirety of suddenly there being a car manufacturing plant in Nepal. Manufacturing as an assembly, all the parts are being imported from South Korea, India, and others, as I've read in multiple media sources. But the assembly part is happening in Nepal, which at the end of the day is still a big thing. Like, you can't not take that into consideration. Nepal being able to assemble cars, and for now it's just the Hyundai Venue, which is like a subcompact SUV made primarily popular in the South Asian or East Asian markets, or a bit of European markets where smaller cars are preferred. And yeah, quite cool, isn't it? You will now see made in Nepal tags for Hyundai Venues, and maybe down the road other cars too. Like, you could be driving a made in Nepal Hyundai Venue in, I don't know, India, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, who knows? That's cool to me, isn't it? And yeah, that's the thing I was thinking about, comparative advantage and absolute advantages on these things. I don't know. How good has Nepal thought about, how good have the business owners of this plant thought about just Nepal's, political instability, government changes, tax uncertainties, policy changes into consideration? Like, all countries go through this, but the thing is, when there's a certain government in most countries, they stick around for the tenure of 3, 5, 7 years, a lifetime if it's a dictatorship, and so you at least have that predictability and ability to cast very realistic sort of projections. But I feel like just in the last couple of years here in Nepal, we've had so many cabinet changes, minister changes, that I feel like big businesses like this that are very connected to the global economy might get hampered. I mean, hampered in the sense as not in a bad way, but you have, suppose, a motor coming in from South Korea, you have door panels coming in from Indian Hyundai plants, you have your transmission coming in from, I don't know, some other region of South Korea by freight, by train, by air. I don't know what the logistics are. If it's close to the border, it'll probably be Indian trucks supplying all these parts to the Nepali factory. But yeah, and then suddenly there's some sort of public holiday, there is some sort of a riot, there's some sort of instability happening, and suddenly your whole production floor is behind schedule. Who's going to take accountability for that? Who will say, yes, this was my fault to these production delays? It's ultimately going to impact the supply of some dealership, some country out there. Also, who are we exporting these cars to? Is it for the Nepali market itself? Like I'm actually very, very, very curious to see this quality of Hyundai venue, to test drive it and like see how the finishing is. I don't feel like there should be too much of a difference, but hey man, it's made in Nepal. So I definitely want to check it out, whether there's any quality compromises or like differences in, I don't know, seat stitching or tuning of the engine. You know what I mean? Fine, tiny things, not the bigger sort. And yeah, like definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully there's also a price reduction in these cars. I am a bit curious if Nepal government usually imports and slaps a big tax on these imports. What's gonna happen to a car that's like actually made in Nepal? Will there be smaller amounts of like imports happening, or will there be bigger? Who knows? I can't tell honestly. Like that 300% tax is VAT and custom duties and everything. I would assume that the parts for production will have some sort of tax on it, or might be tax exempt because the whole assembly is happening here. But then, what about the end product? Will that then be taxed the same 300% as foreign imported cars are? Like we had this whole thing of like Hulas Motors in Nepal a couple of years ago, if you remember that, a whole made in Nepal Jeep SUV that could do rough roads. Yeah, a lot of bureaucracy happened, a lot of political instability, in-house corruption, and a decade later it's like gone. At one point even the heads of state, prime minister would be seen using it, but small country, quality of production and everything was far behind, so it wasn't very likable in the market, and price wise too it wasn't the cheapest either. But it did make a good effort and showed that when there's a will there's a way for producing vehicles in Nepal. And with Hyundai, it's a corporate company coming into the country, and I am all for it in the sense, do you know how many jobs that's going to create in that region? Like, not just that region from like local workers and mechanics, but just in general, you will have like engineers, guards, managers, supply chain experts, heads of offices, all working in that space. So that definitely means it is creating employment in the region. I don't know how big or small that'll be, but better than nothing, I suppose. Oh no, the road is closed here. Ooh, 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 ooh. Well, I was not expecting that here. But anyway, there's a lot of pros and cons to that, this whole thing. And I am just a bit, I wouldn't say apprehensive about it. I do welcome the economic opportunities, but I'm looking forward to see how this goes. I am not a part of it. To me, that entire news just says more economic freedom, more GDP growth. So let's see how this goes, honestly. Let me know what you think. Do you think any other big multinational corporate will come and create a plant in Nepal, or why do you think Hyundai did? And I'll see you on the next one.